Welcome to The Planet Forward with Preetha, conversations for a greener future, the place where we ignite discussions and uncover innovations driving us towards sustainability. Every episode, join your host Preetha as we explore the stories, ideas, and pioneers making a real difference in our world. Get ready to be inspired, learn, and be a part of the change that propels us forward to a greener tomorrow.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Planet Forward with Preetha, where we explore stories of innovation, courage, and change. I'm your host, Preetha, and today we have the privilege of speaking with a true pioneer in the field of mental health and social justice, Vandana Gopikumar. Vandana is the co-founder of the Banyan and the Banyan Academy for Leadership in Mental Health, organizations that have transformed the landscape of mental health care in India by providing compassionate and comprehensive solution to those living on the margins of society. Under her leadership, the Banyan has reached over thousands, offering services that range from emergency care and recovery to community living, thus challenging and changing the conventional narratives surrounding mental health and homelessness. Today, we will delve into Vandana's journey, uncovering the deep convictions and challenges that have shaped her path and the remarkable impact of her work. Vandana, thank you so much for joining us today. It's such a pleasure to have you here on the show today.
Thank you so much, Preetha, and the pleasure is entirely ours.
Thank you. So, Vandana, I've been waiting to have you on the show, and I've spoken to almost 9 of your senior leaders, and I've really learned a lot about what Banyan has been doing over the years. So I want to ask you, to begin with, can you share a personal story from your early life, like something that sparked your dedication to mental health issues? Was there a formative experience that shaped your perspective on the need for mental health advocacy?
When I've been asked this question several times, and I've answered it differently at different points of my evolution, the Banyan's evolution in life.
I actually saw that several interviews as well. So I want to see what is your perspective right now.
Yeah. So in the beginning, I thought that it had nothing to do with my formative years, and that it had not very little to do with me or with my circumstances. And this was in the initial years, the Banyan, where we believed that there was a need to make a difference because we saw somebody like us. So it was more the gender angle. So it was more a woman in distress, a woman alone in the midst of a sea of humanity and not being supported, feeling alienated. And, there's that churn in your stomach when you know that that person could be you. And so it was that really that we thought that connected us. And it just so happened that the woman was, it was like a double jeopardy situation, because not just was the person a woman and homeless and perhaps abandoned and abused, but also that there was the layer of severe mental illness or schizophrenia. And so that connected us. But somewhere around, let's say 2005, 6, when I was awarded an Ashoka Fellowship, at that point, the Ashoka folks had a very serious conversation with me about exactly the same. And then as they kept going, with the questions, I realized that I've always been fascinated by the mind. And by life. And I think the two have such a deep connect.
Absolutely.
I mean, without your mind, without our thoughts, we're not ourselves, right?
Absolutely.
So it's various minds that are connecting that result in the bonds that we finally make in life. So I have, therefore, I've always been a very thoughtful child. Thoughtful not as in caring for others, but sort of a thinking child.
You always were monitoring your thoughts, and you have always had that intriguing question, how these thoughts evolved and things like that.
Yeah, so I've always thought about, like, from my early days, as has Vaishnavi actually, about life itself, about how there are disparities, about how each of us thinks differently. If there's an emotion, from where is that emotion coming? If there is anger, from where is it coming? If there is distance, why is there distance? Why do we act in a certain way in a certain space, and why does that differ from space to space? So I think these were questions that we were always engaged with. That was one. The second is that I think I did go through a decent amount of distress myself in my life, which I somewhat discounted or forgot about. I don't know what really happened because I didn't attribute it at that point to the start of the Banyan, and I still don't know if the Banyan began as a consequence of that. But I was fairly, I definitely went through a low in as I entered my teens, and so this questioning or existential thoughts and existential questioning sort of became a lot more deeper. So if there is a God, why is there so much of injustice? I would actually write letters to God and post them, put them into the post
Wow.
box. At that point, there was nothing else, right? And say, why is this happening? Why is that happening? I was very fond of animals, and I think a particular incident where animals were treated very poorly. In fact, it's a set of puppies. I don't want to say it because it's a trigger warning and people could sort of be traumatized or triggered by this. But it was a cruel gesture on the part of society and a family that lived across our house. And I was extremely moved, disturbed, troubled. And I think that sort of sparked a series of unfortunate incidents after that in my life where I would now in hindsight say certainly depressive. I didn't want to, shower for many days, and I didn't want to engage in conversations with the outside world. I wanted to keep to myself, and I didn't think death was too bad a thing, right? So I was thinking these thoughts at a time and stage when people would think boyfriends, girlfriends,
especially in your teens, right? Their focus is
yeah,
something else.
Career, sexuality, life. So all of that took a backseat, and it was these somewhat complicated thoughts. I don't refer to them as dark because I think they've been a part of my journey. So there's light in darkness, and there's darkness in light. So one has to be clear about that. From there, so then that came to my life. I also have, seen disturbances in my mother. And so I do, she's a large part of who I am is her, and she's brought us both Vaishnavi and I, great strength. She's also brought us a great sense of courage and great focus on principles of justice. So she would sort of, when we would go out in the car and when we would buy ice creams, she would make sure that the children outside would also have ice creams with us. So the idea of knowing that there was another world, knowing that there were children who didn't have basic food, while my mother didn't consciously sort of say it to me, neither did my father. And my father was in the Air Force, so both lived lives where they believed in sharing. But just by the act of just eating that ice cream together, and ever so often, I realized that there was a world outside of us, and whatever that these questions and disparities and whatever else that I spoke about probably emerged from the fact that I was exposed to that larger world and not not conditioned to think inward, but to think broader, right?
Not protected and secluded from the rest of the world. You were exposed to that kind of life also to question.
Exposed to this in a very gentle way of sharing. But I was actually protected from many things which hit me really hard earlier. So my mother I'm an only child. So my mother protected me from, as much as she exposed me to this, she equally protected me from distress. She didn't want me to see death. If I saw a movie where somebody died, she would change. She would make sure that I saw another movie where that same person was alive. So I believed that there could be eternity. So she wanted me to be happy. But she did, and when I think about that, all of that, I think of her very fondly, as much as every mother and child can sort of go through ups and downs. But equally,
Yes.
I'm reminded of those things that she did because she obviously wanted to protect me. And now here I am.
And as a parent, that's what parents do, right? They do everything to protect their child. So if you look at it from their perspective, they did everything, whatever they knew, right? Maybe they didn't have this exposure to mental health and other things. So with the limited knowledge they had and what they're conditioned to believe and what they're raised in that part of the society, they do that. They just protect their
Yeah.
children.
So to round off what I'm saying, my mother also went through periods, I feel, of ups and downs and continues to go through it, but she's not on medication. I was much later diagnosed as, a person who uh, did experience bipolar type 2. So I do have highs and lows, but not with psychosis. And I don't believe really in labels of diagnosis. So I don't really know if it's bipolar type 2, if it's hypomanic energies that makes me or allows me for me to do things, if it's the depressive reality or the deep dive into life, mine or others, is that makes me ask questions and want to engage with things that are nebulous, are not clear, right? So because I feel that as much as I gain from the energy parts, equally I gain from the deep dives into life, because I think those result in the need to ask more questions, to reflect, also look inward and look at things very clearly, actually. As much as you associate brain fog and everything else with depressive conditions, equally, I feel in that melancholy, you see things very clearly. So I feel that some of this sort of, all of this at different stages, so which is why I'm answering it very differently. So I got on medication there for 2005, 6. So it's a set of things, the deep questioning in the early stages, the curiosity, my own experiences, my mother's experiences, our interactions, our worldview and perspectives. And then when I saw that I did have this hypomanic energy, but at the same time, sort of dive deep into a world of questions that could seem dark, but like I said, I found light in what others might sometimes consider darkness.
And I have never ever heard anybody speak about mental health in this space. You're absolutely right. And I guess when you are talking about your journey and how you have understood mental health, your dips, and you don't want to go and certify what a psychiatrist would say, like bipolar 2 or whatever, a labeling. But if I have to reflect on my own life, it's the same one. Then we all go through the dips, and I personally have gone through a phase in my life. I know, and at the time, there was no any tools available to tell you that this is what you're going through, and people around you also don't know exactly what you're going through, and they diagnose in their own way what they know is right. And when you are talking to me, just like somebody just reading through me a few chapters of my own life, what I've gone through. And I'm reflecting that, and it is true. And even now, I am in the middle age, I go through those phases. There are days when I'm at my high and I have this burst of energy that I can actually go and do. I can even conquer the world. I can do so much multitasking. And then there are days I just literally want to shut down and sit inside. Just don't bother me, because then there are days when you just question your existence, right? Like I go through a phase, like, and that's why I travel quite a bit. I go through those Himalayas is my famous spot in the world, because I go and meditate for 10 days, like completely isolate from the world. And I do, because I want to go inwards, identify who I am, all the questions what you're asking about, like why is so much disparity, like if God is truly there, why is it some people are so affluent, and why is there so disparity in wealth and so many other things. And when you're talking to me, it was like I'm like thinking to myself, is she just telling a few chapters of my life? So thank you for being so candidly speaking, because many at times people would be very hesitant to come on a show and speak things like that, because that is natural, what happens in every human's life. Many a times people are even scared of analyzing their own thoughts, thinking that, oh, maybe I'm going through it, but that's okay. That's what normal humans go through. And And that journey and your own personal story is the one which is a foundational aspect for you to go and look at the folks who are part of Banyan, because you understand what they're going through, because you've been there, you've done that. So when they come and tell you their pain and what they're going through, you know exactly what is happening to them. And probably your journey also helps in that. And at least that's how I gather from here.
Yeah, it certainly does. I didn't, like I said earlier, I didn't think that it would. The connection was more gender and suffering and those questions. But my worldview of, you know, mental disorders or mental health concerns or mental illnesses or madness, because different people look at it in different ways. And madness here doesn't have negative connotations, because madness can be beautiful. You can find truth in madness. You can find creative energy in madness. So I feel that different people now, and there's a whole mad studies movement now. So it's not just the, sort of the binary focus on, okay, it's mental illnesses and this is your DSM classification and these are your labels and this is your medicines, because it's not as simple as that. You're talking about an inexact science. People still don't know how these classifications, you mentioned tools, there are certain tools, but not everything about psychiatry is exact. It's inexact. It's only 200 plus years old. You still, while it rests somewhat in the biomedical paradigm and while responses are pharmacotherapy oriented, so you do take medicines, but still there's a lot behind that in terms of what has precipitated that distress, and that's not probed deeply. So the person's not always the focus. It's probably the label and addressing those symptoms, but actually it has to be the person who's the focus, right? And therefore this whole movement of mad studies where you celebrate your madness, you feel proud about it. So it's not really so my focus is not the binary. It doesn't have to be one or the other. I think you draw from wherever that medication might help you, therapy might help you, but you also draw from your own life perspective, which is an important dimension in understanding your mental health or your life. Also, you draw from the positives that, that your condition or that your life has brought your way, if you're in a position to do that. Of course, when it intersects with other structural barriers, just caste-based discrimination, gender-based discrimination, class-based discrimination, becomes very difficult. But even then, it cannot just sit in binary spaces of one or the other. There has to be a dialogue between the two.
Absolutely. And so beautifully said. And you're connecting everything, like you said, right? You just can't just think about, either this or that. You'll have to look into all the aspect, like in a holistic approach, you have to look at it. Only then you can actually give the best care. Thank you so much, Vandana. So now I want to move into the pivotal change at the Banyan. So throughout your journey with Banyan, 30 plus years since its inception, was there any specific instance that significantly altered your approach or thinking about mental health advocacy? Like, how did this moment influence the strategies or philosophies you employ today?
Right. So I think our teachers have been the people that we lived with. Right. So I think the first change emerged when we decided that we're not going to be armchair academics at that point, or that we're not going to be distant observers of the problem and use evidence-based practices to respond to crises that we are seeing. We were very clear that we wanted to be a part of the journey of people who came our way. So we actually left our houses, and we come from fairly protected, secure backgrounds, and moved into a rented house to live with the people that we served. So for 8 years in different ways, first in a rented house for 2 years, then in another rented house, because we sort of got to a stage where we needed our room to be given to accommodate more people. So we had a room, and then there were several other people who lived with us, and we formed great friendships. Those initial years where we did everything, we cooked together, we cleaned together, we cried together, we laughed together, we danced together, we went to movies together, we heard stories together, we heard the narrative and the perspectives around living in absolute squalor and poverty. We heard the narrative of experiencing the sort of madness that gave you both strength and in some ways just sapped you of all energy. But more than that, we heard the narrative of oppression, where life by itself could hand you, a card, very different from that of others. And just by virtue of being born where you are, and experiencing the sort of circumstances that you live in, your reality could be so different from others, and you could feel oppressed, you could feel lonely, you could feel alienated, and yet not grab onto something that not find the connections to grab onto something that would keep you going. So that, those depths of loneliness also we experienced by being in contact with people who came our way, where, for example, even recently, a woman said that, do you know that I have a book of grief that I have written? And I've not written it, but it resides in my heart. So she's obviously living with something that's crushed her soul so much that she's referring to as not one story, but multiple stories.
Book of grief.
Yeah, and it's not because of her mental ill health alone. It's because the circumstances as a consequence of which she's ended up where she has. So mental health obviously has social causal pathways, what we refer to in technical language as social determinants, right? So very often those are, now it's very, it's the done thing to address the social determinants, to speak of it, to talk about those pathways. When we began in 93, those pathways weren't valued as much. So you saw people as being distressed, you saw those labels, and you saw medication as the treatment, and therapy to an extent for the privileged, because obviously there's no therapist and there's no psychiatrist in the villages. Where is the question of therapy being available over there? And also the efficacy of how can you sort of work around therapy other than just active listening and being there for a person. When a person is being beaten, when a person doesn't have food to eat the next day, when the person is drinking, chilly water to quench
their hunger.
Quench her, not quench her thirst, but really make sure that, suppress her hunger so she can have whatever little food that is available to feed her kids, if at all there's a good day when she's able to feed her kids. So I think the greatest teacher that we've had all our lives is those initial years where we decided to live with people that came our way, learn from them, and also truly understand what we're today referring to as social determinants. So truly understand the factors that have led to their ending up where they have, not just from a mental health point of view, but also from a descent into homelessness point of view, from an alienation point of view, right? So that was perhaps the most important thing that we did: live with the people that we served for, engage with them, make connections with them, and take them as our teachers. And so I think that has sort of shaped the journey. So every time, therefore, that there was a change in our strategy, in our advocacy, it's been through our learning and through our interaction with the people that we serve. So we started off with acute care services, and we said there's a need to bring people into acute care and make sure that there are treatment pathways. They're able to, if families are keen and if they are keen to return to their families, there's possibilities for reunification. We've had some glorious moments there. I'll just narrate a quick story.
Sure, absolutely. Please, I'd love to. Please.
Yeah, because that's when we really figured that it's not families that are abandoning people, but that it's, very often the absence of care that's resulting in the person's actually walking away from home. So there was this person, Ram Kumari, and she came to us. We've spoken about her many times. There are many stories like this, but very quickly she would dance for a living here in Chennai, and the police station, folks at the police station brought her to us. So when she came to us, she went through the same, observation period, and then we got to know her better. And then There was a psychiatric diagnosis, and then there was treatment through medication. There were, of course, therapeutic alliances made. And then we got to the stage where she said, hey, my interest is in sewing, and I used to sew my kids' clothes.
Okay.
So she started then tailoring these little clothes and said that, I'm missing my kids. I'm also missing my husband and companionship, because I did have a really lovely relationship with my husband. And I'm well now. So I want to reassume my role and my identity as a mother, as a wife, member of the community, as a partner. So I'm ready to leave the place. I want to reclaim my life. And that was a moment of joy for us. That was lesson 2, right? Lesson 1 is understanding the pathways. Lesson 2 is understanding that most people are in control of their lives and want to reclaim it. So don't think that you're playing God, whether you're a mental health professional or a psychiatrist or coming from a position of power or a policymaker, but realize that everybody has that in them. You just have to provide the platform and be open to listening to that, and not in any ways be patronizing or condescending when doing so and thinking that you have all the answers, which unfortunately many mental health professionals do, many people in the social and development sector do, many policymakers do, and of course many politicians do. So therefore, I think if we respect and value every person for who they are, certainly all these disparities that we're speaking about, all these inequities and mental health concerns, even to a certain extent, would perhaps be addressed because you just respect and regard the person for their uniqueness or for their
accept a human being just the way they are, rather than trying to change or condition them to social norms and things like that. Because exactly, you don't need to do that. Like, I'm a mother of 2 children, and one of the things I've seen, like my daughter is 22 almost, and my son is 19, and raising them, especially in this country, trying to confuse them with like there is a word they say here, ABCD is American born, confused there she is, because we still want to hold on to our values, what we are raised with, the Indian traditional values, and then the children are raised here, and they are exposed to, in school and college, to a totally different culture. But when they come home, they expected to behave a certain way, and they're so confused, they don't know what they're doing, and then they go through a lot of mental trauma. I'm talking from that angle. And I told this to myself when I was raising my children, I'm never going to do that. I said, because they've made sure they're going to live their life here. My job is to show them the heritage from where I come from, their parents come. If they want to adopt it, it's their right. Let them do it if they want. But I'm not going to torment them and confuse them in a way that later in life they come to figure out, like, they didn't have to go through all that pain. They could have just had a normal life just the way they wanted it. Exactly. And that has been the biggest success for me, I think, is like accepting the children just the way I'm not trying to mold them and putting them into a mold, saying that you have an Indian parent and you expect it to live like that. And I guess it's, and
so you did it, and you therefore there was in your mind there was the need for you to be true to them, true to yourself and your feelings. And I think your reflection of who you are as a parent, or who you are as an Indian, all of that came together in the way in which you offered it to them, which was with a great sense of dignity, with a great sense of equality, and at the same time with a great sense of kindness. Unfortunately, in the context that we are in and the context that we work in, there is already an inequitable start, where even in psychiatry, where mental health professionals think that they are
above,
not all, but many, that they're above, where academics think that they're above maybe those who are involved in practice, where the global north and what it says perhaps matters much more than what is happening in the global south, as innovative as its work might be. English speaking versus local language speaking. Right?
Yeah, that definitely, there's a disparity there. People think if you speak really good English and if you only speak the local language, you are superior. I have no idea why people think like that.
And that your intelligence is associated with the language and not with your intelligence or your intellect or your thoughts, right? And in this context, much worse, because you are not speaking already from a position of power. So it's very easy to take power for granted. But in our context, when you have a mental health concern, that takes away some power from you, whether or not you like it. Two, you are living in abject poverty. That takes away a lot of power from you. And three, you have others telling you how to plan your life if you're especially female and
Yes.
of quote unquote not the if you also face the
Social stigma.
a sense of powerlessness as a consequence of belonging to certain caste groups, right? So all of that intersects in the Indian context and takes away a sense of power and autonomy and agency. And therefore, there is this, there are these power differentials. And so you're not listening carefully to what people want. And if you're listening, it's often patronizing. And that's such for me, the emotion that comes to my mind is disgust, right?
Yes.
But it's the truth. And it's, anyway, coming back to Ramkumari's story. So we heard her, and for us, it was an aha moment, right? Because
it is, definitely.
And so that's second lesson, that everybody can reclaim, whoever it is, wherever they are, regardless of the power differentials, they can reclaim their life. Just be open to that idea and thought, and then you'll have so many more inputs, even from intellectual capital point of view, which obviously impacts your social capital, right?
Absolutely.
So when she said that, then we said, all right, so let's plan, let's gather monies, and let's head out. And it wasn't just her, it was several other people, but I'm narrating her story. So she took these little clothes and we went to Pratapgarh. So she had traveled all the way from Pratapgarh in Uttar Pradesh to here. We got down at Pratapgarh station and went some distance, and then she saw a clock tower, which was really old. And she said, no, but this doesn't look familiar. And, I don't think this is it. And we thought old clock tower, and she's not able to recognize it. And all the way from Chennai to Pratapgarh, is Pratapgarh really the place? And then we went to the police station, and they said, no missing persons record over here. And then we were on the verge of sort of giving up and going back to the taxi. When we were crossing the railway track to get to the taxi, we saw a man who was pushing his cycle and who saw her and said, hey, aren't you Bela's mother? And that was her daughter's name. So we perked up, and she was like ashen. She just turned blank, but obviously that was a sense of blankness and shock and hope, anticipation. And we said, yes, she is. And then he was also shocked, because he said, oh my God, and here you are. And so we said, can you take us to the house? And he said, yes, follow me. So we went in, and as we walked inward, suddenly more and more people came around the village, and they recognized her. And then the Sarpanch, the village panchayat head, came. And then we walked towards a house that was actually decorated with fairy lights. And the first thing we saw as we reached the house, by then it's a huge group, is her photograph hanging at the entrance with a garland, because they thought
assumed she is no more
dead. And the person who was by my side said, that it's been 6 years since she's walked away, and we were all mourning her loss. Her children were mourning her loss, and therefore you see this. And by the time he said that, she was standing there with the clothes, with the ghungat, and there were some big children, grown children, adults who, I'm still referring to them as children because of the small clothes and her narrative, but people who came out from there were in their teens and early and late teens, and they just came, shocked, just a second, completely embraced her, broke into tears.
Oh my God.
She still was holding on to those hands, to those clothes. So she still didn't drop the clothes, and because for her, she left behind little kids. Things have changed. People are around her. She's walking into her house. And then she's seeing the little children, no longer little and grown. And why the fairy lights? And then she's seeing her photo there. So she knows that they've thought that she's dead, and she's, shaken up. And then she comes to know that her daughter is getting married on the same day that she returned home. So we
Oh
actually got
my
back.
God.
There are the fairy lights, and then there's everybody coming running, and there's Ram Kumari there being told that, hey, there's Mehendi, and the daughter's getting. So the daughter that lost her mom, the mother that left her family behind, is coming back to see her dead, but also to see that her daughter's getting married. But unfortunately, the husband had passed. And why did she end up on the streets? The family loved her. The community was supportive, but the access to care was limited. At that point, there were 123 districts in India versus 700 plus now. And each district is an administrative block. And typically, there's a primary health center and a government hospital at the tertiary level. That's how our health system is organized. And at that point, out of the 123 districts, there were about 23 that had the district mental health program. So many would often opt for alternative practices, including faith healing systems, which are not bad, because sometimes faith healing systems work with evidence-based practice to actually improve the person's ability to recover in a much more wholesome manner, because they don't feel judged. There are various people with, differing abilities or with unique personalities. And there is faith that allows for you to embrace hope, which otherwise you're not able to when you merely have a label. So this combination of coming together sometimes, for the most part, can be really helpful.
Really helpful.
So we are not the lot who would say, move away from everything that's traditional, move away from your culture and focus only on allopathic or Western medicine. We are the sorts who'd say, embrace the two, focus on evidence, don't engage in anything harmful. If any of these practices are harming you, then it's defeating the purpose. But yeah, so this one story led us to the second pivotal point, where we realized that if we are focusing on acute care, we focus on reunification, but we also focus on strengthening the district mental health programs. So we focus on community mental health systems. And as much as we focus on that, we focus on the social role and on integration of various aspects of the social role, such as the person being a mother, the person being a person working, the person being self-reliant, the person being a partner. So focus on all of that as well through your system of care, and therefore focus first person to the person's valued social roles. And then, of course, there is
environment and other
element,
things.
the
So,
environment.
and to what you said earlier, so Ram Kumari here was your teacher. Through her, you actually, the new system of care evolved, and
Absolutely.
you actually completely designed a brand new approach in treating mental health. So she was and what a beautiful story, right? Like, when you said she was still holding that clothes, what she made for her children, assuming that they're still little. But then when they came running to her, they're grown up adults and her daughter's marriage. And oh my God, what a beautiful story, Vandana, because those are the kind of moments that you have to live for. All the effort you've put and all the unconventional methods you've tried to treat a person, not going by the books. To what you said, right? There are people, they only want to follow a structured pattern, and well, that is not wrong either, but then blend it with the other aspects as well, so that it becomes a holistic approach. And this story is like a testimony to that, like how it can impact. And she herself came back and said she wants to integrate with her family.
Absolutely.
That's the most success story, right? That's what we want them to go and be part of their natural habitat versus staying aloof and away from their family.
Absolutely. And in some cases, there are people who say, hey, this is the same family where my father sexually assaulted me. I do not want to be a part of this environment, because this is the very environment that caused me the stress. Or a neighbor or a tenant right? So there's a lot of child sexual abuse that we see amongst people that have developmental health concerns at a later stage in their life. And so you don't go back to disempowering environments or to stressful environments, but you go back to environments that are loving and nurturing. So when you don't go back to those, that was our third teacher, right? Then what happens? So then came home again. So ECRC, or the Emergency Care and Recovery Center, is the acute care needs, which is hospital based, which provides care focused on the person. So person-centered care. Then your pathways can be to the family. And so that was lesson 2. Lesson 3, not sufficient to just do that. You need support networks and solidarity networks with the district mental health program, with multiple stakeholders, could be faith healing centers, could be the panchayats, could be self-help groups. So that's our community mental health program. It's called NALAM, which means well-being.
Yes, well-being, yes.
Well-being. And then if you're not able to go back, or if you choose not to go back, but you still want to be in some way independent, or in many ways independent, then what do you need? You need a house. So you start mental health, you start treating mental health concerns, but then you realize that mental health is beyond what you think of as mental health in a box. It's about the person, it's about the environment, it's about society. It's not just about you, it's about many things around you as well. So we approach all of that. And then now we look at, hey, if you're homeless, and if you have a mental health concern, and if you don't want to go back, then you look at housing, obviously. So now we're looking at housing and supportive services. And that was one of the, 27 sort of evidence-based practices that the WHO, the World Health Organization, recommended as an inclusive practice, because we don't want for people with mental health issues to be tucked away in hospitals where there are still cells. It's not just in India, it's globally.
It's globally like that.
In the US, people are in jails on the 9th floor, and you have such large numbers because it transitions from the health system to the judicial system and the criminal justice system. And so you have to actually commit sometimes a crime to be able to access health support in the jails. And I've met and interacted with several caregivers, especially one of them being Pete Early, who's also written a book on this whole phenomena of caregivers really struggling, seeing some of their loved ones die by suicide, trigger warning, in the absence of care. So one can't push this to any extreme. Really the mid path to the extent possible, but the mid path that is very significantly driven by the person in distress and supported by the person's support or solidarity circles. So where, how much, to what extent, without coercion or too much of, with cajoling maybe sometimes if required, but with understanding, realizing the agency of the person, realizing the intellect, realizing the autonomy of the person, realizing the person for who they are. Right. So Home Again, therefore, offers housing services and some supportive services. So there are 3 grades: independent living, where people live completely independently, is just the house. And when they want to connect with us, they connect, they work independently, they form a social cooperative. So we have women working as beauticians, women working in the healthcare sector, women working and running programs of the Banyan, and working and running other programs across the other.
That's the best success story, Vandana, because they have gone through the journey. Exactly. They've gone through the journey, they came out, and now they're saying we are in better position because we've been there, done that. We know exactly what the other person is going. Who better teacher than them? So they can empathize with the other person even much better. And, and they are giving back, right? It's like, paid forward. They're making sure that nobody else should go through the trauma or the pain, what they endured. And they are coming to help the community. And when I was speaking to the other leaders, they're talking about this Home Again program and how it's evolved. I was like, that, you don't, like you said, right? There are individuals who don't want to go to the environment because that environment was not very supportive. But they still want to be part of a community. We're all social beings. We all want to have the society where we interact with others. And that's how we are all conditioned to live in this universe. So making sure that you're giving them that space. Maybe, a few other women can come together and live together and, form a family, like an environment where they can all grow and thrive together independently. They can, do something so that they are financially independent as well. That gives them a lot of, mental strength, that they are not dependent on anybody. They can actually earn their own livelihood. They don't have to go and, beg on the streets, or go and do any other kind of a job just to survive. So you're giving them that kind of, self-respect, that they also can live in this universe with lots of dignity.
Absolutely. And I think these are non-negotiables, because who are we to give anything to anybody else? Everybody is born with equal rights. It's rights that we have snatched away because of the way in which society behaves and people act, right? So we have decided that women could be inferior and therefore they're treated in a particular way. We have decided that it could be the male who is the breadwinners. There's certain kind of jobs there. We have decided that the global north is God's own gift to the global south. We have decided that mental health needs to be located in boxes, and it's either madness or it's psychopharmacotherapy. But we are an evolving species. We're an evolving world. So we have to be cognizant that dignity is something that's integral to everybody, that rights are something that are integral to everybody, and that all of us are evolving. So if we would just come with a certain amount of humility to learn from each other and learn from life and life's experiences, because we're just a speck in this journey of evolution. Right.
Absolutely. We're a speck of dust, we are, in the grand scheme of things. But we think, human beings especially, think of ourselves so big, that we are so superior, and there's so much of superior, like, because of socioeconomic conditions, we tend to treat people in a way just because they are, not as powerful as you, or not as affluent as you, or they're not educated as you. But fundamentally, they're humans. They are fundamentally human beings. They are fellow human beings. They're born into certain societal, socioeconomic conditions. That's not their fault. That is something they're born with. But you can help them, right? You can actually help. I know, and those are the questions which always come to my mind. Rather than sitting and criticizing another fellow human being because they're in a certain condition, what did you do to uplift them? That's just this fundamental question I ask. And like you said early on in the first question, when I asked you, you had those thoughts in your mind, why this is happening, and these are the thoughts still prevail inside me. And I always ask this to myself, like, rather than being the problem, why can't you be the solution? And that's a question I always ask. And I always ask my children also. I train them, rather than coming and telling me there's a problem, tell me how you're going to solve it. Because we need problem solvers. We don't need people to create more problems.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's exactly what two of our women did in the context of Home Again. And I can mention their names because they would want me to mention their names, Amalie and Jacqueline. They are from a little village called Govindakurchi in Trichy district. Both of them both suffered terrible losses when their parents died. In the case of one, the husband abandoned her. She sort of, had a psychotic break post that. And as a result of her behavior, people in the village didn't know what else to do. So they put her into a little thatched hut and locked her, and would send food from under the, the thatched door, just so she could eat some food. The other sister was concerned but didn't know what to do. Parents who had cared for them had gone. So they were alone there, psychotic break, husband abandoned, Amalie, the younger sister, not knowing what to do. And then this lady suddenly leaves the place, breaks open the thatch, and Amalie comes after her. And anyway, long story cut short, they go through several places, end up at the Banyan, get to be a lot better. And we figure that Jacqueline is actually trained to be a nurse, and that Amalie, we enrolled into a course where she learns to be a home manager. Both are thriving, intelligent, thinking, deep, kind, compassionate, angry people. One is angry. So Amalie is angry sometimes. She's impulsive, but she's a manager. She's driven with energy. This Jacqueline is wise, calm, thoughtful. She's the person who had the psychotic break, and kind and compassionate, thinking about everybody. The two of them said, we are well now, and this is 15 years ago, right? And at different stages, they said, we are well, we know how to manage our ill health, we feel. In the case of Jacqueline, she felt she needed to continue the medicines. Amli went through a depressive episode. She felt that she could do without medicines. She wanted to focus on self-directed care because she saw it as an extension of her circumstances. Both their narratives are valid. She needs medicines and she feels so, and she needs solidarity circle. She needs support. She needs the calm. Amli needs energy. She needs friendship. That impulsivity and her quirks define her, and both are amazing. They have now created one of our largest home again units, which
Oh my
is
God. Wow.
celebrated globally, and which
Bravo to them.
absolutely,
Really?
from having zero social capital to supporting a whole village in its mental health, in responding to not just a village, now extending it to a block, in bringing many other people if in from positions of distress. People who had lost their partners and therefore couldn't educate their children are now employed by them, educating their children. Children have
Oh my
gone
God.
on
What
to
a success story.
a girl whose sister died by suicide. She didn't know what else to do. She was completely caught in a web of negativity, pulled out from there, now serving others, empowered. All have attended a diploma course. So therefore, they also have the diploma to their advantage. So I think there's so much happening there that the world has to learn from their story and their narrative.
Absolutely. My God, this is the most success story that you can even think of, right? Like it's like they found their calling through their pain.
Their calling. They found
That
their calling.
they found their calling through their pain. See, when every human on this universe go through a phase or an episode of pain or distress, that is bound to happen. When you come out of it, we all have a choice. Do we want to become bitter or better? These are two options right in front of us. They chose to be better. They took their pain and converted that into a totally different, compassionate episode where they are showing the world, no, you don't need to be bitter. We can also transform lives, and I'll show you how. Just because of these two individuals, an entire village is transformed. Oh my God, Vandana, that is amazing. Those are the things that you have to live for, because that is what we as humans, we have come to this universe to do, help fellow humans. That is the true purpose of our lives. But somehow around the way, we all forget what we came. We run behind a lot of materialistic things, and we are in this frenzied journey of running to conquer something, God knows what, and accumulate all these wealth, which we hardly take it when we leave this universe. And then we come to think in our deathbed, oh, what happened? What did we do? It's too late. But these are the souls who have taught us the true meaning of life.
Yeah.
Right? They went through a lot of pain. And they decided to convert that and give it to others in a form of help, so that they don't go through the trauma what they went through.
Absolutely. And you know what, Preetha? When I am going through a low and not through a great phase, I don't feel comforted or happy or relaxed here at home. Okay? I feel comforted when I go to Amali and Jacqueline, spend time in Govindagurchi, and lie on Amli's lap and she massages my hair.
Oh my God.
I am just blissed out then. And I think it's the same, whether I travel to Govindagurchi or whether I travel to Maharashtra or whether I travel to Kerala and spend time with my friends there. We're now in 5 states directly operating our services because they've been scaled up, some with the government, the National Health Mission, some with the government of Maharashtra, some with the Azim Premji Foundation as a new collaborative in Karnataka. But when I go to these spaces, particularly to Trichy, and of course our Chennai spaces and Kerala, which is where I spend a large part of my time, and it's now slowly going to increase in Karnataka as well. But in people that where I see similarities, because I actually connect with the people that I serve with much more than I connect with the outside world. So the quote unquote outside world is not a safe space for me. My safe space.
If I ever come to India, and please take me, I really want to meet these two beautiful souls in person, because they are the true angels. we speak about angels in different forms, but these are really angels. Like they have understood the purpose in their life, and they're actually making sure that they are living every minute of their lives in this universe, serving others, helping others.
Absolutely.
You're so blessed to be in such great company, Vandana, because you're so blessed, because these are individuals, they don't have any kind of preconceived notions, or they don't have any vested interest. They're so clean and pure at heart, and unconditionally they want to just help. They're not there for gaining any personal agenda.
So I am completely blessed, and I have to tell you, you asked me right at the beginning, right? So yes, I've told you about the storytellers. I've told you about how we've scaled up. Our leadership has told you about how they've scaled up. We are fairly organized. We're fairly structured, but what has the Banyan? Why did we do the Banyan? I've given you many reasons, and we still don't know. There's chance, there's possibility of understanding a deeper dive into life, and then you sort of engage more. But when you ask those questions, you do more. As you do more, it becomes sort of an addiction because you feel so good. And I use addiction here in a positive way because it's giving me let me not use the word addiction, but I get so comforted in doing what I do that I want to do it repeatedly because it brings me joy, a sense of purpose, gives me a sense of meaning. But finally, when you feel and think home, when these spaces and when these people are your home, so it's Amalie is my home, my colleagues are my home, right? So I feel comforted in that space, knowing that whatever that we have created, why she is my home, all of that is taken forward and the vision is advanced. So it's a movement that's moving by itself, because you'll have various kinds of people. Some people may be there out of a sense of duty, some people because it's a job, but whatever it is, their commitment is 100%. And all of us are mixed. So nobody is completely pure, nobody is completely scarred, nobody is completely, selfish. There's various.
We all have a dark and the light in us. We all have.
There's various dimensions,
yes,
right?
Definitely.
But my sacred space that saved me is, I'm broadly saying, the Banyan. If not for the Banyan, I don't think I would have come this far in life, not in terms of who I am today, but even in just terms of being alive in this world. So I think it sort of has been one of the key reasons that I have actually continued to live. And to that end, my gratitude is to the organization. It's not the reverse. And
I was just going to say that you said that in the beginning. It is they are actually helping you versus you're helping them. So I was just going back to it, and you rightly said. So your gratitude is to them for giving you such a beautiful environment, a family where you can call home. You feel at home. Oh my God, Vandana, you're so blessed. And I'm really, really, really happy for you that you found such an amazing family of people who are selfless. That's such a beautiful thought. So, you've done amazing things, amazing, just hearing the story, I'm so inspired. So you as a visionary, every visionary has dreams. They're still aspiring to fulfill. What is one dream for the Banyan that you have yet to achieve, and what steps are you taking to realize it?
So, there are several dreams that I've had for the Banyan, and I think one large part of it, we actually tied it up yesterday, which is to have our leadership completely operate independently. Until now, there was some amount of support, but we've formed, you've met one group of our leadership, but there are a few others as well. So they're going to completely independently advance the vision. I mean, it cannot get better than that.
Oh, wow.
Movement has been built, but its sustainability is thanks to the Azim Premji Foundation, thanks to the Rural India Supporting Trust, who are based in the US, thanks to the Tata Trusts from earlier, thanks to Sundaram Fasteners Limited, thanks to your sister and your brother-in-law, and Cholil, who supported us right from the beginning, and several other people like that, thanks to my co-managing trustee Balraj Vasudev and many others, and Bajaj, and I don't want to go into Grand Challenges Canada, so I don't want to go into all of that because then next I have to mention everybody, but I'm just saying there is some amount of sustainability that we've built. We've taken our programs to scale. We've managed to influence policy and write the policy for Meghalaya, write part of it for Tamil Nadu, be invited to write it for Maharashtra, and it's almost half cost. So I'm hoping that these policies will not just be documents, but will translate into changing lives. And therefore, and there's not just one or two of us doing it, but many. So there are many leaders, there are many spokespersons. There is no one Vandana Vaishnavi. The organization is independent of that. And to that end, from a sustainability and from a passionate leadership point of view, to find these amazing what shall I
torch bearers to take it,
torch
bearers to take it forward. Yes,
is just my largest dream. But my second dream, I have two other dreams.
Yes.
Second dream is to have people like Amalie and Jacqueline at the forefront. So they are part of our leadership team. But when you talk about people with lived experience and they're feeding into international policy at the WHO level, it's still rooted through us. Or attending conferences, it's still rooted through us. I want that middle layer to go. I want them to be there leading, them to be there advocating in whatever language with translation provided.
Like policymaker, right? They have a seat at the table. They can go and say
they have a seat at the table. And
that is amazing.
So that is my focus now, where these persons and their stories and their insights and their wisdom has to inform the narrative in ways that they need to recognize are as relevant as those English speaking, those who are academics, or as people who are intermediaries such as us. So we're creating a large movement across the country where we're bringing all these people together, and we will have a conference with them. And I think that will drive the agenda for this moving forward. That's the second.
Oh my God, that's an amazing dream. And I really pray to God every single day that this dream should come to fruition, because that is the real change we want in this universe. And
that's the real change.
That's the real change.
And the third thing that I want, which is a dream, is since we work in the space of mental health and homelessness, I want affordable housing to be something that the government at the central level, at state levels, focuses on. So if there are homeless people, they don't straight away get locked into shelters. If there are people with long-term needs, they don't get locked into hospitals or units that may not offer the sort of care or may not be able to offer the sort of care that's required. Not everybody can spend as much as is spent in home again. So if affordable housing were a possibility, and if government would focus on that, and if budgetary allocations would sort of drive that agenda, I feel that's my third dream. Then everybody has a house, care is provided because the district mental health program is available, and then you have the potential to earn and you have support circles. So affordable, everybody having a house, everybody being their own spokesperson and being at the center of the conversation and not at the periphery with people like us, and of course our leaders who are driving things forward. And my personal goal for 18 years, I've delayed writing what I wanted to, some of these stories, just in a story form, because I think there's nothing more powerful than storytelling. And I haven't been able to do that because of time, because of finances, everything. I don't earn a salary. So many of those things. So I need to build some way in which I'm able to bring together these stories.
Yeah. So are you planning to write a book or, a documentary? What is your thought on that?
Both, a book and a documentary. And I do have 3 publishers whom I've delayed with, for one publisher for 6 years, another publisher for 12 years. They've been very kind. One is an academic book that will get done in 3 years because now we have a team of people, of global partners from Cornell and NYU and from NIMHANS and several other places working with us. So I have no doubts that the academic goal will be met. But the storytelling goal, which is more powerful usually, I want that in the documentary very definitely to move forward, which I think will change the narrative and tell the story the way that it has to be told. So I have to raise some amount of funding to be able to do that. And it's because it's personal, it has to be personal funding. And I don't have the resources. I don't earn a salary, like I said. So I have to somehow find that.
I'm sure we'll find something, Vandana, because this story has to go out because there's going to be so many people who's going to get benefited out of it. So I'm sure it will work out, and I'll see what I can do in my capacity to find the right resources to help you do that. so that,
Great.
because these are the things that the world needs to know. And so that, future generations can know what, this is like a toolkit for them. This is like a Bible that they can use to say, hey, there is a tried and tested methodology, which is not going through the conventional, science. What is, like I said, it's not wrong to follow that, but, these are experience, 30 plus years of experience. One person is telling, imagine that coming as a documentary. Oh my God, I'll be so thrilled. I'll be the first person to go and watch it. So
yeah, and these documentaries need to go to large public platforms, whether it's Cannes or wherever else, because I just feel that there's only one narrative that's being told of the poor, deprived person and somebody else making a difference. But these are stories of power. And there are ups and downs. And we do have a good network of filmmakers as well. So let's see. I'm sure something will happen.
I'm sure it will. Now, since you have expressed your wish to the universe, it always comes back. And I always believe in that. So miracles do happen. So we'll definitely hope for the best. And I love the way you said. So the last question I have for you is, like, I know you are trying to build more leaders within Banyan, as well as, all the other individuals who are part of the Banyan as clients, and you're actually asking them to be a train the trainer, or making sure that they pass on whatever they've learned at Banyan, and giving their knowledge and their experience to ensure that no other person in the family goes through it. So from that aspect, what advice would you give the next generation of social entrepreneurs who aspire to make a difference in fields like mental health and social justice? What lessons from your own journey do you think are most valuable to them?
So the first lesson is listen actively. Listen actively to the people that you work with. Listen actively to the problem. And somebody told me earlier that don't fall in love only with solutions. Fall in love with the problem. If you fall in love with the problem, you look very deep. You'll engage with it deeply. You'll attempt to find the solutions. You won't be quick and attempting to close the loop fast. So fall in love with the problem, engage with it, right? That's one. Listen, fall in love with the problem. This is borrowed from a recent acquaintance / friend of mine. Two, very definitely follow your gut. Very definitely follow your gut. If you're true to yourself, if you know what you're thinking, if there's clarity there, and if you are a person who believes in intuition and gut, follow your gut, because it never lies. And if you're honest to yourself, you will learn how not to lie to yourself by being self-aware. So get to a stage of being self-aware. Three, once you do whatever that you do, distance yourself from the output or the impact, and walk away. This another teacher of mine, Keshav Desiraju, who is the that's him and I behind. He was the former health secretary who wrote the mental health policy along with some of us, 10 of us for the country. And he's a dear friend. Sarvapalli Radhakrishnan, our president's grandson, who got into the IAS, and he would do things and walk away. So he trained me. I've always had teachers. So the first active listening is all our people who taught me. The second thing about gut, I think, is something that the little me taught the big me, and about my own truth. Three, him and many other people like him, Dr. Parshuraman, the director of Tata Institute of Social Sciences and my PhD guide, he taught me, do what you have to, walk away from it. Don't associate yourself with it. Don't take credit for it. Of course, pat yourself on the back a little bit. Everybody does that. Feel happy about it. But don't become emotionally tied to it, because then you won't further expand. You won't further open your vistas. You won't further open your mind. You'll be closed to ideas that others may offer you that may be helpful, because you're so ideologically connected to your idea and your approach and your outcome and your model. So try and walk away from it. And fourth, that results in a great deal of intellectual and social humility. Because for you to be able to do all of this, if you don't have that humility and open-mindedness, it's going to be very difficult. And lastly, whatever that you do, celebrate the small and the big wins and downs or losses or whatever you want to call it, because in everything there is a lesson. So have fun doing what you're doing.
Oh my God, that's a profound, guidance that you can give to anybody, not just social entrepreneurs, any human being on this earth. Because the way you said, it's so humbling, because you spoke about your more inner child taught you to follow your own gut, because we fail to do that, we as human beings. And then speak about everybody who came to your life is your teacher, mentors. They all have taught you valuable lessons. And then the art of detachment, very, very difficult for we as humans, because we're all so attached to certain outcome and a certain thing. We seldom forget to look at the big picture. Unless we are willing to let go of this, we cannot see the rest of the journey for us, right? So we need to have that courage to take a risk and let go and see what is in that for the next journey. And if we all practice that, we will be far ahead in our own lives. We won't be like stuck in that same space and then think, why is it happening to us all over again? Because we have to have the courage to let go and say, okay, you've done that, good. What's next? Focus on the next thing. And actively listening, that is one trait that we as human beings have to, consciously cultivate in ourselves. You just listen. Don't immediately, offer solutions. Just listen. And the other thing, the first thing you said about fall in love with the problems, you said, I think one of your leader also told the same thing. And they said, that's how they look at it. And they said, they don't look at the, what should I do 10 years from now? They look at the current problem, they analyze it, make sure that they're getting into it, they get to the root cause, fix it, and then they're like, okay, let's focus on the next one, rather than they're not in a hurry to fix this and then go on to the next one. They like, so I think your leadership quality shows it, because that's exactly what that person told me. And I took that as an anecdote for myself. And I said, I want to make sure that I start doing it, because that is a trait that you have to inculcate in yourself, to start looking at it. Problems are okay. Look at it in a way that, okay, what can I do to apply to make sure that it's no longer a problem? And having fun. We all have forgotten to have fun in the process. We are all so caught up in day-to-day, rut, that we are like, forget what is joy and what is fun. And we all wait for that tomorrow, that tomorrow will be a better day. And the tomorrow never comes for most people. Tomorrow is never promised for us. None of us know that we're going to be even waking up tomorrow when we sleep tonight. And we forget about today, this moment, this small happiness we all can get, we forget. And so I think these are all valuable lessons, not just for social entrepreneurs, for every human being. And thank you so much for saying that. For me, I'm so grateful. I'm so emotional now just talking to you, Vandana. So thank you for being such a joy today, just to talk to you. It's been truly enlightening to hear your stories and insights today. Your dedication to transforming mental health care and creating a more inclusive society reflects a deep commitment to not only ecological sustainability, but also to social justice and empathy. Thank you for sharing your journey with us and for the incredible work you do at at Banyan. Vandana, can you please, tell us any final thoughts that you want to tell us?
No, I think I've just said everything that I've had to at different points. I just think that if we learn to think that the world is a much smaller space than we think it is, if we realize that we're all in one way or the other connected with each other, I think dignity, respect, regard will automatically emerge. It seems simple, but I think it's something that we need to delve into a little deeper. And for that, we need to undergo our transformation ourselves. Many of us are occupied in different ways and therefore are engaged in different things and don't find the time to do it. But if we could, I just feel that we may be a better, nicer, smaller world where we're connected more closely and can have conversations. Preetha, I must also thank you for this conversation, because have conversations like this that are real, that are authentic, where we're able to connect, even though we haven't met earlier, and you are where you are and I'm where I am. But I've found similarity. I've found the ability I'm actually a very shy person and introverted, which is why I keep away from public platforms, and Jaya knows that. But I could speak with you because I think you were encouraging of any response. You didn't come with a preset agenda. You wanted for a free-flowing conversation, and you have this unique ability, I think, to connect with another person and the other person's experience, and that is a gift. So I absolutely enjoyed
Thank you.
going through this process.
Oh, thank you so much, Vandana. This coming from you means a lot to me. Thank you.
I mean it fully.
Thank you so much. Heartfelt gratitude to you for that. To our listeners, thank you for joining us on this inspiring journey today. Vandana's work reminds us that every small step forward is a part of a much larger leap towards creating a more compassionate and understanding world. It's leaders like her who inspire us to continue pushing the boundaries of what's possible and to drive our planet forward. Remember, change begins with us, and every action counts. Let's carry forward the spirit of innovation and empathy into our own communities. Until next time, keep making a difference and pushing our planet forward. This is Preetha signing off from Planet Forward with Preetha, Conversations for a Greener Future. Thank you and take care.
Thank you for tuning in to the Planet Forward with Preetha, Conversations for a Greener Future. Together, we're exploring the innovations and stories that inspire us to think and act for a sustainable world. If you're inspired by today's conversation and want to be part of this journey toward a greener future, make sure to subscribe to our